In our first episode, we saw how sound is stamped with the identity of the space it's reverberating in, and is very much dependent on the size and the material of that space. We focused on what we call natural reverb, which is generated by the small reflections of a sound on a surface. In today's episode, we will be discussing artificial reverberation, or the simulation of the effect of reverberation. We are all familiar with reverb effects that we can easily add using pedals, for example, or using plugins in our audio workstation. If we look at this reverberation pedal, the Blue Sky by Strymon, that we will be discussing further in our third episode, we notice that we have three types of reverb: the plate, the room, and the spring. Of course, each one will change the quality of the reverb that will be added to our signal. Now, before this technology existed and before it was available in small, compact sizes that we can carry around and use anywhere, studios had different solutions to simulate the reverberation effect. Today, we will talk about the three solutions that were often used in recording studios to simulate the reverberation effect. The first one, the echo chamber. Second, the spring reverb. Not to be confused with the season. And third, the plate reverb. Let's talk about the echo chamber. The echo chamber takes the same logic of having a sound reverberating within a space, depending on the size of that space and the different material covering the surfaces of that space, exactly as we discussed in our first episode. So let's imagine we have a studio, recording studio, with that same out player from last episode, recording a certain tune. The sound is being captured and recorded via the mixing table. In parallel, we have another room that's actually owned by the studio of a specific dimensions and specific material covering it, etc. And we have that same source of sound coming from the musician playing out of a speaker in that room and being captured by different microphones placed within this room. So basically, what the sound engineer ends up with, he or she will have the sound of the specific musician, the direct sound from the musician, and also another channel of the sound being captured in that specific room, so taking the sonic identity of that room and the reverberation of that room. In that case, mixing both signals can create the reverberation effect, and we can play around with how much reverb we want in this case. Of course, the reverb remains very dependent on the room and the size of the room and the characteristics of that room. Moving to the spring reverb, which is a much more feasible solution to create this reverberation effect. So basically, the spring reverb functions in that manner. We have a metallic tank with two springs or more. Being held on each side with a specific tension. We have a transducer here and another one on the other end. So basically, our sound signal from an electric source activates this transducer and is translated into a mechanical movement within the spring. This movement goes back and forth within the spring based on the physicality of the spring, the tension and the density, etc., and then is recaptured again at this end by this transducer, which sends it back out as an electric signal that is added up to our initial signal, the source. This mechanical movement creates a sound of like a swoosh sound that is a simulation of a reverb effect. This effect was created by Hammond for organs in the 30s. And it's a very used method, especially in guitar amps. We can find guitar amps. If we open them up, we can find this mechanism present in these amps. It is small and it is easy to use, and it's kind of a solution that is very much accessible. Another solution introduced in the end of the 50s is the plate reverb. It's a very big entity, a big metallic frame, where we have a metal sheet hanging with hooks. In the middle, we will be placing a transducer, speaker, that sends our signal to that plate. And on the sides, we have pickup microphones or piezos that actually capture the sound from the plate. What happens through physics of motion and material, the sound from the transducer propagates in the plate. The sound waves, they reach the edge of the plate and then they bounce back and they blend with the initial signal, and they are picked up by these piezo mic. So what we end up with is the signal plus the reverb from these different reflections on the edges of that metallic plate. While our first episode focused on the reflections of sound in a space, we spoke today of the different ways sound propagates within a wide range of material. Every piece of wood, every plate of metal found in a random alley on a random day has the ability to transform sound. So let's pause again and open our eyes and our ears and feel these random objects and what they have to tell us.